Hey everyone, it's Carissa at Sprinkled with Glitter. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am going to show you this really fast and easy card featuring the Everyday Punnies stamp set, the Everyday Doodles stamp set, and the Instant Photo Frames die set, all from the Essentials by Ellen line. And I am going to walk you through my technique for stamping and die cutting multiple images once again. I did this a couple weeks ago, but you all loved it. So I'm going to show you. I do this a lot actually, because I think it never hurts if you're going to pull out the stuff to have a bunch of them extra on hand if you need them. So I'm taking all of the stamps. This is from the Everyday Doodles stamp sets and the Handful stamp sets. And I'm arranging them onto a piece of Neenah Solar White heavyweight cardstock on my MISTI. So this cardstock measures 5.5 by 8.5 inches. And once I have them all positioned onto my cardstock, I'm going to go ahead and close the door of the MISTI, pick up all those stamps, and then I'm going to ink them up in some Gina Amalgam Jet Black ink. Now, I love this ink because it's really versatile. I can use it with water-based coloring mediums. I can use it with Copics. I can use it with colored pencils. And it gives me a nice, crisp, dark black image every time. Now, these stamps are brand spanking new. So once I stamped them once, I went ahead and opened and re-inked all these stamps again and stamped them down into the same place so that I could get a really much darker black image, because when stamps are new, they kind of have a residue on them from the manufacturing process, and you don't always get a great stamped image on your first go. So I'm going to stamp these images several times. So I have several of these images to play with. And so each time I'm just going to take out my cardstock. I'm going to put in a new piece of Neenah Solar White heavyweight cardstock. I'm going to re-ink my stamps and then stamp them onto that heavyweight cardstock. Now, before I take these stamps out, I'm going to take and I'm going to stamp these stamps once again onto some Neenah Solar White 80-pound cardstock. And that's important because when I go to position my dies and I die cut multiple images at once, that top layer that I use, it needs to be 80 pounds because it will cut through the 110-pound paper below it much better if the cardstock on top is a little bit lighter weight. So this is the 80-pound piece of Neenah Solar White cardstock that I'm working on, and I'm taking all of the dies that coordinate with these images and I'm positioning them over the top of these stamped images, and I'm holding them in place with a couple of pieces of delicate surface painter's tape. Now it's really important that you hold these in place really well because they're going to stay attached to this piece of Neenah Solar White 80-pound cardstock so that we can quickly die cut the other images that we've stamped as well. So I'm just building up my sandwich here and I'm running this through my Gemini Junior, and I'm going to pop out the images into a little holding container, but I'm leaving the dies in place. That's really important. This is basically leaving me with a master template because all of my stamps are stamped in the same place. Then I can die cut in the same place as well and have all of these perfectly die cut. So once I've popped out those 80-pound Neenah Solar White images, I am going to take one of the 110-pound pieces of cardstock that I stamped earlier, and I am going to make sure that all of these dies are lined up. I'm looking through the dies to make sure that they're all lined up. And as I go along, I'm going to just press them into place as I verify that they're in the right spot. You might have to like kind of twist and turn this just a teensy bit depending to get all of these in the right spot. But the dies should be able to stay in the same place, and you should be able to just push these down and then run them through your die cut machine again and then pop them out. And that leaves me with a perfectly die cut and stamped image. And I'm doing multiples of these at a time. So I did like 3 or 4 sheets, and I have several of these images ready to go. Now you'll notice as I'm popping these out again, I'm leaving the dies in place on that top sheet of 80-pound cardstock that I created that's acting as my template. And each time I can just position this over the top of the next stamped sheet and die cut these again. I do want to mention that I do use the 80-pound for the top sheet because I found that when I use a 110-pound for that top sheet that acts as my template for the dies, it's a little bit thicker, and so I don't get as great of a cut all the way through the second sheet that's below of that 110-pound cardstock. Even though it's not cutting through that cardstock again because it's already cut through it, it just it doesn't allow as much pressure on that bottom piece of cardstock. So I found the 80-pound works better. Now this Everyday Doodles stamp set is amazing because it has these solid pieces that you can just stamp right over the top, and it colors in your image super fast. And honestly, sometimes I don't feel like coloring, so I love a good stamp set like this that you can either color with your Copic markers, or you can take that little solid image and just stamp it and fill it in, and like voila, you're done. You don't have to pull out the markers. And so I've done that with the coffee cups here. I have stamped one coffee cup in Meant to Be, one in Melon Ice, and one in It's a Girl from Catherine Pooler. So I have a few different colors of coffee cups here, and you saw me stamp a couple of those other images from the Everyday Doodles stamp set as well. And I love that these are kind of meant to be a little bit wonky. They're not meant to be colored in perfectly, so you don't have to worry about stamping perfectly either. So I've created an A2 size card base, and I decided I wanted to cut this down to a 4-bar size. So that is 3.5 by 4 7/8, and I've made this card base out of some linen cardstock from the Essentials by Ellen line. And now I'm taking one of my favorite stamps from the Essentials by Ellen line. It's from the Pattern Play stamp set. I'm inking it up in some VersaFine Clair Nocturne pigment ink, and I'm stamping it onto my card base. Now I'm going to take this instant photo frame die from the Essentials by Ellen line, and I'm lining it up onto this pattern paper from the Stamp Market. I love this pattern paper. It has that little bit of rainbow along the bottom, which kind of reminds me of the original Polaroid kind of logo and feel and theme that they had going on back in the day. I don't know when they came out, but maybe 70s, 80s, somewhere in there. I've die cut that from that really cool pattern paper. And then I am cutting down my foam adhesive into small strips so that I can place it around the edges of this little photo frame that I've created. Now, while I'm working with the foam adhesive, I'm going to go ahead and put it on the back of my little to-go coffee cups as well. And then I can start removing the backer on that foam adhesive and placing these items onto my card front. So I'm going to start with my frame here, and I'm just kind of like holding my mouth right to get this in the perfect position. And then I am going to add my little to-go coffee cups here right on that lower left-hand corner. I just think it's fun to have them all grouped up there. And then I'm going to work on a sentiment for this card. And I have to play with these coffee cups just a little bit more, apparently, to get them just in the right spot. So for my sentiment, I am going to use this little arrow banner die that comes in the Instant Frames die set. And I'm die cutting it from some paper from, you guessed it, the Stamp Market. And I'm stamping onto this piece using the VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, this little sentiment that says, "How you been?" It's from the Everyday Punnies stamp set, which goes great with that Everyday Doodles stamp set. And I just position that kind of at an angle over my frame and kind of pointing to those coffee cups and over the top of that. Now for the final finishing touches, I am using these Doodlebug mini rainbow enamel hearts, which I absolutely love. They are so cute. If you don't have them, you need them in your life. The colors are perfect, and I just love the little fun shiny accent that they give to this card. Now I finished my card off with a little natural twine along the top tied in a bow, but you can see this card came together really quickly. It's just a matter of a few stamps, and because those Everyday Doodles are so easy to do that two-step stamping, it makes this card super quick. But you could absolutely color these images in with your Copic markers as well, and it would be fun to coat them in your shimmer pen as well, which I didn't do. I don't know why, but that's not usual for me. But that finishes off my card today. As always, I will have links to the featured products used in this project in the description at YouTube, but head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Over there, you'll find more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies. As always, thanks for stopping by and watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my paper crafting and card making video tutorials here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.